Hello and welcome back to the CardRPG Scriptable Object tutorial for Unity. It's part 9. We're going to be working on the rest of the enemy script and working on getting the enemy prefab set up in the scene. So let's get to it. So we have the enemy script open. So just to recap, we took care of the variables for the enemy. We took care of the intents that we're going to be adding in, and we're going to be adding all of the information when we set which scriptable object gets attached to the enemy will be pre-filling into the system. So after we did the handle health method, we are going to do a very, very important method. It's a public void take damage method. And basically it passes in an integer of D for damage. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to store int damage and it equals D. So we're going to store it in the integer, the local variable of integer called damage. Then we're going to save a spot here for status effects. And then after that, we're going to do if block damage is greater than or equal to damage. So if the enemy's block, right? If the enemy's block is higher than your damage you are inflicting, then block damage minus equals damage. So we're going to just subtract it from the block damage. Else, and open up a curly bracket, we're going to do damage minus equals block damage. So we're going to subtract the amount of damage from the block damage, then current HP minus equals damage. And afterward, we're going to do blocked amount display dot text equals blocked damage dot toString. So now we can show and reflect the amount of damage left. That's all the take damage one is. We're going to set up another public method called heal health, and the same thing int D. That way, if the enemy decides to cast something that heals them, we have that set up already. So current HP plus equals D. That's all it is. Nice and easy. Another one is for when the enemy chooses to block. So public void add defense. And that's going to pass in another integer of D. We're going to do a block damage plus equals D. We're going to first add it to it. Then if block damage is greater than 0, we're going to take a current block display that's set active is true. So basically we're going to turn on the blocked image. And then we're going to take health slider fill dot color is blocked color, which we're going to set in the inspector in Unity's manager, in Unity's inspector. Then the blocked amount display dot text is going to be equal to blocked damage dot toString. And afterward, always handle health. If it has to do anything with our health, or anything to do with healing ourselves or anything like that, and we don't call current HP, we should probably call handle health to make sure that everything is in order. The next thing we're going to do is a public void is going to be on new turn. So basically when it's your turn, so the beginning of your turn after you end your turn every time and the enemy attacks, this is what's going to happen on the reset of the turn. So basically when you draw new cards, right? When player draws new cards. First we're going to take this turn intent and clear it. Remember, it's a list. This is actually a list of intents. So we're going to clear it to 0. Then we're going to set up something in the enemy manager, which will be in the following video after this one. That lets us choose intents. So choose next intents. So far that's all that does. So now we can actually, so that's everything for right now for the enemy. We're going to go back to Unity. We're going to create the enemy prefab. we're going to right click and click Create Empty. We're going to hit F2 and change the name of this to Enemy. We're going to set the position rotation to 0, 0. We're going to pull the enemy script onto this. And we're going to leave everything empty because it'll pre-fill itself. We do need to set up a couple of these things. Let's take care of that too. I like to uncollapse these because I can at least see them when I'm debugging them as well. Inside the enemy, we need to create a new sprite. So we're going to do a 2D sprite while hovering over enemy to add it in here. We're just going to call it sprite. We're going to make the sprite a background for the image. The image is kind of tiny, so we're actually going to make it the sprite size 8 by 14. And that's until we make our own sprite for the enemy. We need to just set up some kind of default. We're also going to right click on the enemy part of the hierarchy and do UI canvas. So that's going to create a canvas in the enemy itself. We're going to hit F2 and we're going to rename to enemy UI. We're going to change the constant pixel size in canvas scaler to scale with screen size at the size of your resolution. I do 1920 by 1080 and match width or height by 0.5. We're going to remove the graphic raycaster for a little bit of optimization. You don't need it. Graphic raycasters exist only for UI that you can interact with. But they're created every time you make any kind of UI. So if you want your game to run smoother, you can actually remove graphic raycasters. Next, we're going to, inside the enemy UI, we're going to add in a UI slider. That slider is going to sit 118 units, which is really specific, I know, above the enemy. It's going to be a 160 width by 80 of height. And we're going to go in and we're going to take the handle and just turn off the image. We're going to go to the fill section and we're going to change UI sprite. We're going to change it to background. And we're going to change the color of it to bright red. And you see as we move the slider, we actually get a nice red color. One more thing is we're going to remove any buffer sides. So as you can tell, the slider right now is at 0 for value, and there's still a little bit of red there. So we actually need to go to the fill area, change the left stretch to 0, and the right stretch to 0. And that will actually remove any chance of having that be thing. So now we need to create a UI text in the same area where the slider is. So on the slider, UI text. We're going to call this text health. And just for text reference, we're going to make this 999/999. We're going to set this up to be bold. It's going to be bright white. We're going to center. We're going to do best fit from 10 to 60. And then we're going to add an outline of 2 and -2. So now we can collapse the slider. And we're going to add a UI text. We're going to name it name. We're going to give it a placeholder of name. And it's going to be bold. Center. And best fit between 10 and 40. We're going to give it a white color. We're going to set up the Y position to be 165. And we're going to add a new component of shadow. And we're going to make that a 2 and -2 for the shadow. So it pops a little bit to the background. So we're going to right click on enemy UI. And we're going to add a UI image. We're going to set up a new UI image. And we're going to change the name of this to intent display. And what this is going to be an image that shows how the next turn will be affected and the way you can react to the upcoming damage or block. So we're going to set the Y position to 232. We're going to set the width and height to 64. We're going to add another text object to the enemy UI, the UI text, and we're going to put it at 210. 210 for the height, or for the Y position, and we're going to do 70 by 30. We're going to give us a little name of 99 just for a placeholder to see where everything is. We're going to make it a bold font size. It's going to be right aligned and middle aligned, so right and middle. We're going to do a best fit between 10 and 40. It's going to be bright white with an outline of 2 and -2. What this basically is this is basically to show how much damage or how much block is going to happen next turn. We're going to add a game object to the enemy UI. Right click on enemy UI, click create empty. We're going to name this blocked. Blocked will be -68 in height, or in the Y position. Keep it at 100, 100, it's fine, because it's just a placeholder spot. And then inside blocked, we're going to have a UI image. And the image will be called blocked display. And it's 115 in the X and 190 in the Y. The size of 64 by 64. And the sprite that we're going to choose is we're going to choose Enemy Intent Display Defense. You can either click the little circle there to bring up these sprites to pick Enemy Intent Defend. Right? Or, if you don't want to do it that way, you can always go to the sprites, click defend, and drag it onto the sprite. So now there's a little shield there. That'll show when there's actually some block damage. We're going to set up a new text on the blocked game object. So right click UI text, blocked damage display is what we're going to call it. It's going to be sitting at 115 on the X, 165 on the Y, and 70 for the width. We're going to give it 99 as a placeholder. And it's going to be bold. It's going to be right aligned and middle aligned. Or middle vertically. We're going to do a best fit from 10 to 40 with a color of white. We're also going to be adding the outline that we've been doing. So add component outline. And it's 2 of -2. So now that shows how much block damage there is. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn the blocked one off, because we'll actually only turn it on if there's block damage. So you can show how much block there is. Now we have to attach all of the stuff that exists to the enemy. So we need the health slider, and that is this guy. We need the fill for the slider, which is this one. The blot color, we're going to take a nice light blue, like 235, 246, 255. Oddly specific, but it's a nice little baby blue color. Current block display is going to be the turned off blocked that we set up. That's that. The health text is going to be... Oh, we have a thing called text here. We need to change that to intent amount display. Back to the enemy. Health text needs to be this health right here. Enemy name needs to be the name that we set up. The intent image is the intent display. The intent amount is obviously the amount display. The blocked amount display is the block damage display. And then it needs all 4 of these sprite intents. So we have to go into sprites. We're going to drag them accordingly. Sprite attack, sprite defend, sprite disable, sprite buff. And we're going to leave these things how they are. So now if we were to add in one of the datas just to check, we're going to turn this back to none when we're done with it. So first off, let's set it as a prefab. We're going to take the enemy, and we're going to drag it into the prefabs folder. So either here on the actual prefab or in the actual folder for it. Let go, and there it is. So now if we pull an enemy in, we can effectively change it on the fly. So now all we need to do is test it, right? So let's go to the scriptable object of enemies. Let's put in the passive goblin. There it is, right? So now he's set up. If we hit the start button, or the play button, he should edit his stuff. There he is. So now we're just waiting for the turn intent to actually cooperate. It doesn't yet. We don't have that set up. That'll be in the next one. But we do have passive goblin with 10 health, right? If we unmaximize this and we go to the actual enemy, he has 10 HP and 2 strength. His name is passive goblin, so all of the information did forward through. He has his current 10 HP as well. So that is everything for this script. And for this video. So the next video we will be working on the enemy manager and setting up a way to have the enemy randomize his intent of choice. That way you can play accordingly and try to block his damage and do damage to him when you're able. Thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. We do have a Patreon where all these videos go up 1 week in advance before it gets to YouTube. And super appreciate you guys watching. Hope you're enjoying it. Would love to see some feedback. If you like the video, hit that like button. If you really like this video and you want to get some notifications on when the next video goes live, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, guys, thanks so much and have a good one. Peace out.